All right. Hello, hello. So, for those of you who may not know a little bit about my history, I came onto YouTube in 2009 or 10, and was welcomed by Tim Harper, Anthony. Oh God, there's lots of guys that we knew back in the day, referred to as the RPG Brigade via YouTube, Google, I guess. Um, but I didn't do much on Google. I just did YouTube videos and shared via comments there. And then eventually I was in some email chains with some guys, and then eventually Facebook, and shared with all of my peers in more than one Facebook group years ago. And I left Facebook about 6 years ago. So I wasn't able to stay really in daily communication in all the conversations about role-playing games and systems and design intention, etc. So, and then of course, Dell and I were focused for the last 4.5 years doing our own thing, trying to create our own game, etc. So I just wasn't involved with many of the conversations outside. And eventually, of course, we had Discord and some Discord stuff, but we don't spend a lot of time having conversations in there. We might share a couple of observations and we might share some links, but Discord really we use as a scheduling tool and a information sharing tool. And then of course we do our voice chat or video plays via Discord. So that's what Discord's kind of been to us. And of course, I've communicated with Dell through all of this development, et cetera, through our YouTube channel and through Discord. So there have been, so there's much in the history of RPGs. And again, I bring this up because I've been reading Elusive Shift and fantastic. And there's been lots of things that I have been able to talk about, learn about. There's been lots of things that I had my own opinions on, didn't share the same vocabulary that maybe Anthony and company might use, right? Anthony's play to find out definition might be a little different than my play to find out definition. I think we're pretty similar in those kind of things. But years ago, Anthony talked about a shared vocabulary would make communication about these subjects easier. I was not around back in the day when there was a large forum group, I think, where they talked about lots of the philosophies, Ron Edwards, some of his concepts, etc. All that stuff came to me much, much later when I came on in 2010 on YouTube and met individuals that shared some of these ideas and concepts with me. I was not privy to all of that history. And again, I had only been a GM for my friends and for local groups and for the kids I grew up with. I wasn't GMing strangers all over the world. I wasn't communicating outside of my culture, so to speak. So it was a crash course in not only in our hobby and in game design and in the philosophies of our hobby, the techniques and ideas, but it was also a crash course in social media, right? Finding out the hard way that not everybody out there is going to be honest and is going to be are going to be and that you're going to sometimes. So I was navigating all of it, and sometimes there were just miscommunications between people, and mea culpa. Some of those were definitely my fault. So it's just life. It's just life in a large community, trying to share a hobby we're all passionate about. But the gist of this, so I wanted to talk about that because there's been these ideas that are fairly, I kind of get, but I'm not certain about. And I want to talk about it in particular, character poisoning. And the reason I'm even thinking about this was Eloy kind of mentioned the other day before we started one of our sessions that he had made comment about something about the risk of character poisoning via backgrounds. I think it was character poisoning is the term he used. And so again, I kind of intellectually knew what he was talking about, but at the same time, I've got a question, and maybe people here can answer this question. Is it character poisoning when you assume the role of a character? And I assume the role of that character from what I perceive that character has been through already or has experienced already. So I'm referring to personality or mood or identity. So for instance, a great example, I was thinking about Lars when I assumed the identity of Lars live in session. So this has happened twice in the Joth campaigns. So I want to make this clear. I have not had this luxury. So I had a character die in Joth, God, a year ago or so. And I just assumed the identity of the 17-year-old farm boy that was with us. And I took on everything that he had experienced and seen and witnessed and why he was with our group. I would have slid into Abrig's shoes as a 17-year-old farm boy. He was hiring the group to deal with this grunge guardian creature. Okay. So because I already knew the circumstances around the farm, I already knew the circumstances his family and siblings had been murdered. I already knew the kid had hired us. So I slid into those shoes of Abrig, knowing the context of Abrig, and I assumed certain moods and attitudes and his age, his frustration, whatever. And I felt really I slid into those shoes almost instantly in character, and role play was easy for me, right? It's not always easy for me when I create a brand new character and introduce him the next session. It takes me a minute to figure out who the hell is this guy, right? I rarely go in with a brand new 3d6 straight down character, knowing really everything about him, because there's no background. We don't know who they are. You kind of learn about him as you play. But there's been a couple of instances. Arig, I slid into his shoes and I assumed certain things because I knew the context. I kind of thought immediately, how would I feel about all this? This happened again in Joth again. Luckily, we're playing in these long-term open world sandbox campaigns of Joth, Blackfish Bay, in which we die. And we've had moments where we can just slip right in to the shoes of a hireling or an NPC. So again, this happened with Lars, right? One of the henchmen, and I quickly just rolled up his attributes and I assumed Lars as a Longfang fighter, level 1. And of course, I instantly took on what he must feel, having been ordered out here as amateurs, basically as fledgling Longfang warriors, and having been put in under the orders, taking orders from these 3 PCs, Unger and Osric and George the Liar, and they are our bosses, so to speak, and we're with them to do whatever bidding they want. And then as we hike off into the woods, within moments, wolves murder, kill 3 of my friends and kill Unger. And so I couldn't help, the minute I slid into Lars' shoes, again, having instant context. Therefore, I was role playing immediately. I was in character immediately. I assumed a personality or a mood or attitude because of these circumstances. So my question, is that character poisoning? I don't think it is. I think it's contextual role playing. It's assuming the identity of a character based on surroundings, context, and how I would perceive this character must feel, which I think I've said. But would that be construed as character poisoning? It's a question I have for all of my peers out there. I don't think it is, because I'm not making black and white decisions on that, right? For instance, Lars questioned his leader, and he questioned Osric's tale about the giant. But I accepted as a character at that point when Borderland said, "This is what we do. People die. This is what you're here to do. So I don't know what you're bitching about, right?" And Osric said, "Well, wait a minute. I'm not a liar. We wounded the giant. I never said I killed the giant." And my character adjusted immediately to these rational responses. And therefore, I didn't continue to carry on a particular, right? That doesn't mean that I'm not disgruntled with the Longfangs, would like to be in control of my own life and death decisions. So Lars is decided to leave the Longfangs because he's now my character. So I'm not going to belong to the Longfangs, and I don't want to be ordered to go do something that I don't have much control over, right? That's Lars. It's not me. That's Lars, right? But the question is that character poisoning? I'm curious because, again, this is not a new concept, and I know of it, and I know what it refers to some degree, but where does it begin and end? Where does character poisoning begin and end? And there's a question there for those out there. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.